The Valley of Mexico from the hillside of Santa Isabel is by an artist, Jose Maria Velasco, and this was painted in 1882. Um, First of all, it is interesting for this piece because it is coming from an art school in the Americas. It's the first art school ever established in the Americas called the Royal Academy of San Carlos. So our artist is an academic painter. He comes from this school. He's working under a mentor who I mentioned a few sentences down. And the mentor was an Italian artist, very respected in Mexico. He works at the Academy, Eugenio Landicio. And I love his last name because it helps me remember that he was influential with landscape painting, Landicio. And if you can remember his name, fantastic. If you can't, best to know that he is, or there's an Italian mentor that Velasco worked under, and then kind of outdid actually in many ways. So in the school, the Royal Academy of San Carlos, romantic landscapes, romantic art, basically neoclassical art style, was the focus of teaching. Very influential in how the art kind of was designed and what the focus was and what the message was. And in terms of landscapes with romantic influence, contextually, you have to know that Mexico at this time period in the 1880s was relatively new in its independence. It had fought Spain. You remember from old art pieces, Spain had come in and got control of the Americas, called it New Spain. So now we have our independence. Mexico is independent and really wanting to celebrate their independence through art. And so you have these landscapes that are created with these symbols from the past with a looking to the future and the sentiment and the emotions of the present. And so I gave you this vocab term called pastoral idylls. I think that's how you pronounce it, where landscapes, kind of like romantic landscapes, mean more than what they seem. In this case, it is a landscape with this poetic idealism that you see, these symbolisms that appeal to your senses and just make you think of the past in a very idealistic way. And you connect that with the reality of daily life. And this very much comes from German romantic landscapes that we didn't get a chance to study, not part of the curriculum. But I think that term would be great for you to understand. Pastoral meaning land, and idylls, like the idyllic, coming from that idealism. And so in this painting, you definitely have symbols of ancient history with contemporary feelings, and we'll talk about that in just a second. We're going to be focusing in on a view of Mexico City, which was, or which is now, the capital. And that, Mexico City was once called Tenochtitlan. So if you think of the frontispiece of the Codex Mendoza about Tenochtitlan and its founding, this is that place, but now it is known as Mexico City. And our art piece here by Velasco, like many of his other landscapes, were displayed in the World's Fairs, where they were championing Mexico, a national identity, and celebrating its independence and the daily life of Mexico now that it was free from Spain. So content-wise, here you can see the image, and I just want you to focus on the image for a moment and think about the oxbow, another landscape that we've seen, which comes from the Romantic era. That's probably the one I would connect closest to this. You are like on a hillside, and that hillside is looking out over the city of Mexico City, and you can barely see the city itself. It's actually quite small, but incredible detail. That's one thing Velasco is so well known for, is including just such specific and naturalistic detail in his art pieces. So you're up on a hill looking down over the beautiful, ideal landscape of Mexico and Mexico City, but you have symbols of the past. So in the upper left, it's to the right of your writing here, but in the left in the image, I'm pointing to it. They are symbolic of ancient Aztec stories from Tenochtitlan. These two volcanoes, one represented a Aztec princess and the other a warrior in a fallen love. So those volcanoes, while naturalistic and visible to the landscape, also are symbolic of the past and connecting our daily life here to the past, the kind of nationalistic pride in where you come from, which are the Aztecs and the founding of Tenochtitlan. You're also standing on the site where the Virgin of Guadalupe appeared to Juan Diego. So there's this religious reference as well. And again, part of their national heritage and history. So if you think back to the Virgin of Guadalupe piece that we have done already, so this is a connection to that. And in the foreground, you have two indigenous people, really three, but two on foot, and then the woman's holding a child, traveling from the city of Mexico City to back to the country. Reflecting one, their connection to the land, two, a bit of the challenges of living in a city, and also dressed indigenously, again connecting to the history of the place. So multiple things there going on, and in a romantic landscape, the people are always going to feel almost blended into their surroundings. Not at all like the realistic landscape of, let's say, the Stonebreakers, where people are dominating or a big focal point. In romantic landscapes, it takes on this sweeping vista where people are blending in. You kind of have to look around to see where they are. But I would definitely, if I'm talking about this piece, Velasco, I would talk about the atmospheric perspective, the great sense of depth and realism here. I would talk about the historical references with the volcanoes going back to their past. I'd talk about their religious past here with the hillside where the Virgin of Guadalupe appeared to the peasant Juan Diego. I would talk about the city of Mexico City here and its past being Tenochtitlan. So there's many things you could talk about with that. And then here's a close-up just of the indigenous people. Here, again, very much part of the land, part of the history. It might not be an easy life, but it is their life, and it is one to be celebrated and honored as part of what is going on here with this image. And then here is a close-up of Mexico City and seeing the modernization too, the roads, some of this, the smoke and that from transportation and maybe even factories and workers. So I would say with this piece, for formal quality and function, definitely landscape, but again, landscape that means something more, a little bit of national pride, I would definitely say is part of that. And formal qualities, you could do space, again, for that realistic sense of depth within the piece, and balance of the past with the balance, of the contemporary events and feelings of Mexico of that day. So that is a beautiful landscape called the Valley of Mexico from the hillside of Santa Isabel by, again, an artist named Velasco.